Join us by the fireside for our evening tales of true life's strange experiences with things that lie beyond the veil of the known and into the misty depths of the mysterious and unknown.
Something was stalking me. I've had a few experiences with the paranormal before, but here's one that I haven't shared with that too many people. And sorry, it's kind of long, but anyway, here goes. I went on holiday to Wales, which is in the UK, in 2012 with 7 friends. 5 of my friends went to a club that was really kind of expensive, exclusive. And so, being a poor student, me and 2 others decided to go on the beach instead. Our apartments that we were renting were facing the beach, and we had steps going down to our apartment. But you could also get to it from the back by walking down an alleyway with a sensor light that lit up when you walked down it. So we get to this alley, and I just, for some reason, started feeling nervous and sort of freaking out and just feeling scared, like I was sensing something to the point of almost wanting to cry. We walked down the alley onto the beach. No one seemed to be around on the beach. So we walked down the beach, seeing no one, and I still felt, kind of nervous and a little freaked out by whatever it was I felt in the alleyway. So I looked up after walking for a few seconds, and all of a sudden I see this black, opaque figure in the alley that we had just walked down, and it had its arms stuck out to its sides. I was really freaking out now, but I was trying to stay in control of myself and my emotions. And it looked as though this thing was about 7 feet tall, and we were away from it, so it would be taller close up, I would imagine. So, anyway, I said to my friend, "What the hell is that?" And run along to the beach to the left and into the dock where there are street lamps because I'm that terrified. My friend follows me, and he was more skeptical and asks what I'm doing, what I'm thinking. Am I being mad or something? Before I can speak, my other friend says, "Did you not see that black figure?" Skeptical friend, who started running a couple of seconds after me and looked up at the alley, says he didn't see anything in the alley after we told him what we saw. And he tries to come up with answers. Example, was it an ill person? Which is why they look so weird, apparently. Obviously, we don't know, but my other friend and I saw it, and we were both freaked out. It was incredibly tall. So, I mean, that in itself is, really sinister. And it had a black, opaque look to it. So its appearance was not like a person. It's just not possible. We saw no one and heard no one while we were walking down the alley. I go back to my apartment. 8 of us were sharing 2 apartments, and make them wait till 2 a.m. until the others come back. For the next couple of days, I feel really shaken up, and I'm sleeping in the room that I share with another friend, and I feel like something is watching me from the corner of the room. Although that could be because I was, initially so frightened from the experience that now I've, kind of created this kind of feeling inside myself, this fear, irrational fear. I don't know. But anyway, it was almost like I just got this feeling that something was watching me. So anyway, 2 days later, we're on the beach, and I needed to go to the toilet. So I take all 3 keys to our apartment, and I check that no one needs to go in, and I tell them that I'll be 5 minutes. I go in with the keys in pocket, and I go to the bathroom. Anyway, I had previously been playing a trick on a friend. As the toilet light switch was in the hallway outside the toilets, and just for a prank, I had been turning it on and off when she was in there. I was just being immature, just for fun anyway. It wasn't fun for her, but it was for me. So here I was on the toilet just sitting there, and suddenly all the lights went off, just like what I was doing to my friend. All the lights went off, both in the toilet itself and in the hall. I could see through the crack under the door that the hall lights were also off. Then I heard laughter and footsteps, and I assumed that I had left a key and my friends were playing a prank on me. So anyway, I wasn't initially terrified, but then I still felt a little bit afraid. But and then my phone went off, and I saw that I had texts from my friends begging me to let them in. I quickly washed my hands and opened the door. I was terrified now, but I was still convinced that maybe it was a prank. I was trying to convince myself that this was a prank and that, that it wasn't what I feared. Anyway, I went into the hallway and all the lights were off. I went into the living room where the main door was and saw that all my friends there were outside, waiting for me, looking puzzled as to why I wasn't, letting them in. And when I asked later, they said they felt that they should come back. I checked my pockets and I had all three keys. And when asking the neighbors, found out that they had not had a power cut. So why did the electricity just go out when I was in there? The light switch next to the bathroom had also been switched down. So it seemed as though this entity had been watching me play this prank on my friend and had copied it and done exactly the same thing to me to terrify me. I saw the black figure again down a different alleyway near some caves on the beach sometime later. We went on a ghost walk and were told about a mayor who had hanged himself in the area. Me and the friend who had seen the figure just stared at each other at this point, and the ghost walk leader said, "Wow, have you seen it?" Although that could have been her trying to make the ghost walk scarier. And anyway, this figure that we had seen didn't look as if it had been hanged, if that makes any sense. We just didn't get that impression and it didn't look like it. Anyway, we got back from the ghost walk to find that our friends had started a food fight between the apartments. They ran onto the beach, but some went round the front and some went round the back and down the alleyway where I first saw this figure. I ran behind them, but hadn't put my shoes on, so was behind them. It was gravelly, and I saw the figure ahead of me. But it wasn't in the alleyway where I'd first seen it, or the second one. And it was at a different angle and was on the side road ahead instead of down the first alleyway, which would have been to the right. I stopped and ran back to the apartment. I didn't want to stick around there any longer. The next day, I made our friend drive some of us down these roads where these alleys and side roads were, and there were no statues or anything that looked like this figure that could have, looked like something else in the night and confused us. On the last day of the holiday, we went into the other apartments that our friends were in renting. And this wasn't the same one where I had the initial occurrence of being, shut in the bathroom with the lights going out and so on, but it was next to the alley where I first saw this figure. And anyway, the kettle was unplugged for the phone charger to go in. And all of a sudden, it started to boil by itself, and it wasn't even plugged in or on the stand. So that was another really creepy thing that happened there. I mean, this entity was just really just playing pranks, and following us around, and especially me, it seems. So I have more stories, but this was one that really kind of freaked me out terribly, and I hope I never see that thing again. That's all I can say. Yeah, it does definitely sound like this, this entity, whatever it was. Maybe it was someone who died there a long time ago or something, some tall guy, or I don't know. I hear that, entities can kind of make themselves bigger or smaller depending on what they want. It's like the physical laws of natural laws of where they are a little bit different to here, so they can sort of expand themselves or shrink themselves and appear small or large. But it almost sounds like, this thing was, I don't know, maybe not really malicious, but more just playing pranks, just having fun and scaring you and so on. I don't know. But still really scary, that's for sure, seeing something like that. The whispers. I was camping in a campground in North Georgia with some friends, and it was starting to downpour. So everyone just left their tents in the woods and decided to rent one of the on site cabins for everyone to sleep in because, this was just more comfortable. We didn't know how heavy this rain was going to get. So that was probably the best idea. I just decided that I'd sleep in my car because they wanted to stay up late, and I was pretty tired from kayaking all day. So I just really needed some sleep. So then I woke up to the rain, which had stopped, and it felt kind of cold in the car all of a sudden, and I had forgotten my sleeping bag in the tent. So I checked the cabin to see if there was any room left, and the light was on, and everyone was fast asleep. And it was around 3 a.m. I didn't want to squeeze in, so I decided to trek my way to my tent in the dark with a small pen light. In order to get to my tent, I had to pass by everyone's that they left behind. Mine was the last one, and even then it was about 50 feet at least from the previous tent before it. So, they were pretty spaced out between each other. So I got in my tent, covered up with my sleeping bag, and I was just preparing myself for, to catch up on some sleep for a few hours before sunrise. No more than probably about 10, 15 minutes from me getting in my tent, I began to hear what sounded like whispers right outside the tent door. They weren't in English, and to my recollection, they were kind of indecipherable. They weren't in a language that I had heard, and they just seemed kind of alien or something. Just as the voices started, suddenly two orbs appeared together outside the tent. They weren't the same kind of glares as flashlight would make, and both were of two different colors. So, to the best of my ability, it had no real distinct color, just sort of colorful. The whispers outside the tent seemed to be arguing, and they got louder, and they were arguing with each other or something. At least that's how it sounded. But it was still in a whispering, kind of hushed tone. And as the whispers grew louder, the lights began swirling around the tent. Behind me, to the side, and to the front, they just kept going round and round. Not in the movement that one could make with flashlights, and at this point, I also realized that no footsteps could be heard. So I uncovered myself and knelt on the tent floor, preparing for the zipper to come undone like in a horror movie or something. I was just kind of frozen with fear. And as I was flipping through my mind on what option to take, I was the most terrified I had ever been. It was like fight or flight. That's sort of the state I was in. The lights were swirling faster and the voices were growing louder, but still kind of whispery. My mind raced and I was sweating despite the cold. I was just in so much fear. I mean, here I was in this flimsy kind of tent with whatever it was that was outside it. And, I don't know what the hell it was. But I felt very, very vulnerable and scared. There was nowhere to run. And then, just like that, the lights just seemed to shut off like a switch. And the whispers stopped and there was nothing but silence in the empty woods. I just sat there in the tent, as still as I could, and I didn't dare go outside that tent until the sun came up. It was and still is the most frightening moment of my life. Anyway, a few months later, I went to see a horror movie premiere recently, and there was a scene that had the voices in it and goosebumps just ran up my arm because it was identical to what I heard in that woods on that day. It just sounds like something was definitely checking you out. Whatever it was that was out there knew that you were in there, and they must have been watching you, go into your tent. And it just kind of makes you wonder that, whenever we go to the woods or something, what's watching us? Is there something there just kind of observing us. I mean, you just never know, do you? This is a really scary story considering you were stuck inside that little tent, feeling so incredibly vulnerable. But just glad you made it out anyway. The sleepwalking little girl. When I was about 8, maybe 9 years old, my mom told me that we were going on a day trip to meet her high school friend. So I was happy about that. It was kind of exciting. So I grabbed my Game Boy Advance because I knew that my mom's friend has kids my age and I wanted to show them up in the racing game I had. I overheard this from my mom talking with her friend at her house. They told me to leave the room because they needed to talk about adult things, apparently. Little innocent, curious me wonders what exactly are adult things that I can't hear. Were they going to throw some new juicy cuss words out? Well, Mom's friend had a little girl who apparently would sleepwalk at night. And it started when they moved into their new house in Northern California. It was a suburb area, but not too suburb. New neighborhood with a lot of empty homes and the forest patches here and there in between each. She was about 4 years old then, and they found her one night in the backyard, just sitting there alone. After that incident, they decided they needed to lock her in her room at night and bar up her windows so that she doesn't end up in the woods nearby or anywhere besides her own room. So the story goes that Mom's friend and husband wake up to a loud boom on the side of the house in the middle of the night. It felt like something hit the house because everything just shook. So they check on their boys and everything's fine and they hadn't heard anything and they just went back to sleep. And then they check on their daughter, unlock the door, and they see that she isn't in her room. They start to freak out and then they hear a knock at the door. They open it up. It's the sleepwalking 4-year-old daughter. They ask her where she's been, and she said, with the men, and points down the street. Pissed off and scared, Dad sees two guys in coats walking down the street. He yells at them and starts sprinting towards them. Mom's friend said the coat guys didn't seem to react at all. It was really weird. So these guys in coats turn the corner. Dad turns the corner and they're gone. Mom and Dad check the lock and windows later. No tampering whatsoever. They notify the police, who pretty much say that there's not much they can do, but they'll just keep an eye out. So the little girl, sleepwalking 4-year-old daughter, is fine. She isn't scared at all. She's just tired and she goes back to bed. After that, my mom didn't understand why I was scared as hell that night. She believes she was abducted, but refuses to tell me what happened. Even my dad tells me that he can't tell me the story, that it's for my mom to share it if she wants to. But overhearing this when I wasn't supposed to hear it had me tripped out as a kid, because obviously something far more, than I understood at the time had happened, but my parents were not going to share it with me, and I never really found out. Yeah, I wonder what was calling the little girl out into the woods, but well, whatever it is, um, that must have been pretty terrifying for the parents. So I guess they just didn't want to scare you as well by telling you, what it was they thought this might be. And if it was, an abduction or something, then, obviously they would have been too scared to tell you about it, because it might have given you nightmares or something. But yeah, that's interesting. I wonder if what happened to the little girl later in life and if she ever had these experiences again, as an adult, perhaps.